Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and today's video will be disorganised and awful, as they usually are, but particularly disorganised this time, as I have no script. And that's because I've had this glass ball for quite a while, and I've always wanted to use it in some terrain piece at some point, but I've never really been able to, and it's got these scratches and dings and chips taken out of it that don't really sell the scale. But what I can do instead of using it in the terrain piece itself is use it as a jig to make a terrain piece that is spherical. Now, quite a while ago I took a blob of sprue goo, that being the leftover plastic sprue from model kits melted down in acetone, and I placed the ball on top of it. Now I'm going to be using the wrong footage here because this is actually me trying something else and making a stand for the ball on a plastic base, whereas the one I'm actually using in this video I didn't take footage of, but it's just me making it a tiny little blob of the sprue goo just on a piece of baking paper so I could separate it. And after a few days of drying, that left me with this kind of earthen mound with a perfect spherical recess in it, which I thought was quite interesting. Now, the unfortunate side of things is that there is some bubbles and things from the kind of the acetones evaporating out of the plastic. And there are ways to mitigate that or even to cure that completely, but that's something I'll have to deal with another time. Perhaps when I come to revisit this project. But to finish this version of the project first, I'm going to just quickly texture around the outside because it's got these kind of wrinkly effect, which actually does look quite cool, but not kind of what I was after for this. And then I'm going to prime it, paint it brown, give it some dry brushing just to give it at least some kind of effect, even though I'm not entirely sure how this is going to be used. Now, the second part of this project for today is again using the same glass ball, so we end up with the same radius of sphere, or semi-sphere, part sphere, is to, instead of using sprue goo this time, is to actually use a 2-part epoxy resin. And this is actually the really cheap stuff that you get in Poundland in the UK. I assume that kind of Yen World and Euro Store and all the other equivalent cheap stuff shops in your own country will have something similar in the DIY or hardware sections. Now, specifically I'm using this stuff partly because it's cheap, but also because it is clear, which means that I can do interesting things with it. But in this case, I'm actually just going to leave it clear. And so I'm going to take my glass marble and I'm going to put it inside a rubber glove. I make up a small batch of the epoxy resin and I put that over the top of the marble in rubber glove, and as it sets, as it cures, I get this kind of semi-sphere or part sphere with a very raggedy, messy edge, which has a particularly interesting look. And once that's cured and I can peel it away, which oddly takes a lot of effort to peel it away without damaging it. I've been through quite a few of these, but once I eventually got them off, I can actually glue them to my original sprue goo base and create an energy bubble sort of thing. And to make sure that I'm gluing the resin to the plastic and not to the paint, I'm going to just take a brush with some acetone and just gently wipe away a little bit of paint in each place where I'm going to be gluing some pieces. I'm not necessarily piecing these together to try and make them match or make a complete sphere. I'm quite happy for this to be a raggedy, messy, broken sphere, so long as there's enough of it to sell the effect that it is an energy sphere of some type. I'm sure that there's science fiction stories and games and films that have this sort of thing appearing. And that is pretty much it. Like I said, I don't know entirely where to go with this project. I'm quite happy that it works. It clearly does at least work slightly because I've managed to get this far. Along the way I did encounter a few problems. Well, maybe not problems, but limitations of this style. I could only make the resin pieces so big because of the way they fit around the marble covered in the glove. Particularly the glove limited the size that they could be, but also these thin sheets of resin are quite fragile. This is not a piece that I could throw into a box and transport to a game, but it does have a pretty cool effect, and it's kind of along the lines of what I was hoping it to be when I was building it. Now, what can I use this for? And that is a very easy question to answer. There are, of course, many science fiction tabletop games that would make use of some kind of energy bubble, a personal shield, a trap, perhaps. It could be used in D&D as some kind of spell effect or similar. I will probably be using it mainly as an anomaly in the Stalker, Zona or Zona Alpha tabletop games. There's various things within that same kind of space, and that is pretty much what I'm going to do with it. But if you have any ideas, you post them in the comments below, particularly if you have any ideas of how to take this to the next level, because while it is a cool little thing, it is a very simple thing. And I'm sure this effect could be extended to something a lot more elaborate. But anyway, I'm going to stick this up on my shelf where it's not going to get damaged. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.